When we look at the life sciences and we come to this idea of a human being, this advanced nervous system, this brain, this awareness which was rudimentary becomes more visible as consciousness. Again, I will not go into a definition of consciousness that are given out by modern speakers, the functional thing in the brain, purely, and you can reduce it to the neurons, and neuroreductionists like Greg. I will not touch any of them. I went to the I've been told of. I went to the mother goddess of neuroscience. There is a mother goddess of neuroscience, and her name is Susan Greenfield. I said, Susan, what is this consciousness? She said, Jay, don't ask us, we don't know. That's the honest answer. It's a hard problem that has never been solved, which says that how is it possible that this kind of lifeless neurons somehow produce this subjective experience which gives us access to reality? We have never touched it. We don't know what it is. That's the honest truth. You don't know what is consciousness either. When you're doing life sciences, oh yes, no clue. You don't know which slice of the brain produces it. We don't know which experiment to do to discuss this, define what is its origin. We have no clue what this consciousness is all about at all. Oh dear, oh dear. Problem here as well. Consciousness appears in physics. Consciousness appears in life sciences. They sit like that, unreconciled, both as major issues. Now, every effort science has made to try and come to terms with both these phenomena, physical sciences, quantum, and consciousness in neuroscience, has defied simplistic explanation. They produce a whole jumble of jargon that you can easily get lost in. And yet they do not give you. Do you know what's the difference between proper science and kind of purely, synthetical science, which we have a string of words to kind of link to each other, and there you go around the mulberry bush, without defining the mulberry bush. You must have a semantic. You must be able to understand, grasp it. Here, I introduce you now to esoteric Hinduism, which is non-theistic. It doesn't relate to a god as a personality or this idea of spirit as a super personality. It says, grow out of that. That's kindergarten. This esoteric, principle-based Hinduism says, just follow it and see how you like it. It says, through introspection, by looking inward, you discovered what is underpinning to this creation. The thing that underpins all of us, that one thing that unifies, out of which this diversity is manufactured, that one thing is neither body, neither material, nor mental, nor intellectual, but something that we can only class as spiritual. And the two places, the two words that we can use to define the idea of spirit, to give you some kind of handle on this idea of spirit, the two words the Hindu philosophy throws up are asti, bhati. Asti comes from asti, we had aseti in English, which means existence itself. From bhati means consciousness itself. And this is where the reconciliation lies. When you ask a quantum physicist, this thing that you do, this mathematical squiggle you keep doing it, give it a physical interpretation. We are fed up with your this airy, fairy, arty-farty stuff. Give us a physical interpretation of your psi function. They say, if you push us hard, I'll tell you what the psi is like. It is nothing but a wiggle in existence, probability of existence. It's a wiggle in existence is the quantum phenomena. Bhati, consciousness, is the other aspect. And the reason why they link up is this. The very thing that underpins this reality, because manifested as the material world that we experience in front of us, becomes more clearly visible as living things, as the thing that is beginning to wiggle, becomes more clearly manifested as consciousness in us, in human beings. And there are not many consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have a plural. The same one thing is lighting up, looking out through all these eyes here and now. This is how we bring the idea of existence and consciousness together through quantum and through neurosciences. What is the conclusion? Why am I saying this? We live in a world which is so strongly dominated by a materialistic ethos that we produce Madonna, who likes to sing, I'm a material girl in a material universe. It's time to change that. And the way we change it is this. This is the conclusion of the Hindu tradition. It says, we are not material beings aspiring to the idea of spirituality or conjuring up the idea of spirituality so that we can behave better with each other, we can be more ethical. It's not just if you like, a ploy of humankind to become a little bit better. So we say we are not material beings conjuring up ideas of the spirit in order to regulate our material lives. We are essentially spiritual beings caught on a material journey. See the difference? I've turned it upside down. So matter is not the central feature out of which springs out life and consciousness. It's the other way around. It is consciousness and existence that shudder and produce these multiverses that we see in front of us, this multitude of people that we see in front of us. It is the shuddering of consciousness, of existence, that produces this reality to be experienced. The difference is going to be this. This is the thing. It's good that Ted is recording this. This idea of substance and its attributes are going to be now replaced in the 21st century. Otherwise, science struggles with the word reality and appearance. This is where we sit at the moment. The world is lovely, is coherent, it is universal, and yet it is an appearance. The essential thing that underpins all of us and this material world is spirit, not matter. Thank you, my friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Lakhani.
Free e-learning course in Hinduism. To register, please visit www.hindu-academy.com.
Talks on Hinduism. Sponsored by People Care. Encouraging caring for the elderly in their own homes. For more information, please visit peoplecare.com.